Welcome back to another episode of the Fanatic Brackets, Season 2, Episode 1. I'm Nick, your host. With me, as always, is my co host, Joel.
Yo,
Today, we're joined by none other than a good friend of ours. Please welcome Angel Cruz. What's going on, man? How you been?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? Thanks for having me on here. Gonna have a good time today.
yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Definitely will. Definitely will. Um, so you came up with this topic of greatest feuds of all time. Within this is basically mainly WWE feuds that we see. Was there any particular uh thought process that you thought about when thinking of this topic? Was there like a favorite, like a reason why you chose this, or
I was going back to your past shows, and I'm like, man, they didn't do feuds yet.
yeah,
Like feuds is a big thing. I mean, feuds could be storyline based. It could be outside based. Behind the scenes kind of thing. So I was more looking at the storyline base. I like to be captivated. I like to be drawn in somehow. So I was thinking back of my days of watching wrestling, and then even some of the newer stuff happening now. So I was like, all right, so I think I could break it down to 16 out of the thousands that could be chosen.
yeah, fair enough.
And we got some heavy hitters on this list.
Tough
Yeah,
matchups,
no,
yeah,
I'm looking at it. I'm like, this is pretty deep.
Yo,
yeah,
hell yeah, man.
for sure. So, for those listening that hasn't listened to a previous episode before the show, the gist of the show is basically us three are gonna go matchup by matchup. Each of us are gonna choose within each matchup which participant, which feud was better than the other, and give our reasonings for it. Whichever feud gets 2 to 3 votes between us three, obviously, we'll move on to the next round, all the way to the finals. This is an opinion-based show, so there's really no right or wrong answers on how we look at this or how we view this. So it's really up to us. So, without being out of the way, let's get right into the bracket. Angel, since you're our guest, we're gonna start off with you with the first matchup. We have Rock versus Austin going up against Sting versus NWO.
Woo.
Between For you, Angel, who do you think was the better feud, very storyline
Oh
between these two?
man, I mean, damn, this is a hard one right out the box.
Kicking it off strong.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is a strong one.
if we could have switched up some brackets, then maybe it would have been a little easier. But man, this is
Yeah.
a tough one.
Yeah,
Rock versus Austin, like, I mean, come on now, like it's just you don't get those type of rivalries anymore. Um, just the back and forth between the IC title matches, then to Stone Cold's last match to Mania, like all in between. It's just crazy how their rivalry they just clicked in the ring on the mic. It didn't matter what they were doing. Then Sting and NWO was like that was like a whole wildfire, man. Like Sting with that, not even saying anything, coming, being that Avenger type guy or that superhero to save WCW from the NWO. Man, uh, I think I will have to go with Sting and the NWO for this one.
Ooh.
Ooh, okay.
It's tough. It's definitely tough, but I think that one was more. I think it captivated everyone, like who Sting is going to choose,
Yeah.
and again, I like the storyline base behind it. I like to be drawn in, and that definitely drew me in as far as Sting and the NWO because NWO is just running roughshod on everyone, and Sting was that outsider looking in, like. See, I told you guys in the beginning I wasn't rocking with them. Now I'm rocking by myself. And then he had to come in and save the day. It was dope, watching it.
Yeah, fair. Joel, who do you think? Sting versus NWO or Rock versus Austin?
So both were amazing, right?
Yeah,
I didn't grow up watching the Sting versus NWO, but just the storyline of him months in the rafters, just waiting and thinking who's he gonna choose, showing up with the paint, like that's a new Sting. You know what I mean? Like that's how he introduced it, and then like Angel said, whose side is he gonna pick? That was the
yeah.
big thing. Um, and
And
then of
eventually that's a
course
Wolf
leading
Pack,
up
right?
to
This
down
whole
the line
storyline.
that happened, but
Yeah,
at first it was just him by himself and he was taking on
Yeah.
anybody. That's where the famous meme comes from where he takes off the mask,
Yeah.
the Sting
Yeah.
mask, and it's Sting.
Yeah.
Um, but then Rock and Austin, this is where bias comes in because like my first WrestleMania I remember is 15, and then I grew up with that era, and Stone Cold was my guy. So I don't really have to go much into detail. I gotta go with Rock and Austin.
All right.
Fair. I mean, for me, I'm gonna go with Rock and Austin too,
Okay.
because yeah, technically I wasn't around for either one, but um,
Oh yeah, I forgot you started
yeah,
watching later. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So the thing was is like I know Rock versus Austin for me was talked about more than Sting versus NWO because that was much before Rock and Austin.
Yeah,
Um,
a couple years before.
Yeah.
yeah,
Not
96,
like
97.
yeah.
I wasn't even born for that probably to be fair, but
Had that ticket
Rock
back.
versus
I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah, no worry. But like Rock versus Austin lasted what, a couple of years. Well, not consecutively, for a couple of years, but it lasted
On
from
and off.
15. Yeah, from 15 WrestleMania 17 and 19 to kind of headline three WrestleManias
Mhm.
during those times says a lot about a storyline.
Which is
Um,
crazy. 30 years
yeah,
is wild.
I know Roman technically could do that too, but it's like he feuds with different people here and there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
It's kind of different. But Rock and Austin, the story they had, the two biggest names in the company at that time, the that's a ticket grabber for I'm assuming it was for a lot of people, a lot of fans back then, to be
yeah,
like,
but
this is the storyline.
so was Sting versus NWO though, because you had
Yeah,
like the big bad Hollywood Hogan and our WCW savior Sting. You know what I
You
mean?
know what?
So
Then when he won that WCW title off of Hogan, like
oh yeah,
just
yeah,
went crazy. To finally take that NWO, well, the scripted NWO title off him.
yeah,
So it was dope. It was
yeah,
cool.
yeah. Rock and
yeah.
Austin
But
just Sunday
yeah, I
the
think that was
Truth.
also on a bigger stage too.
Yeah,
Like it
Yeah.
was a wrestling. So I feel like if Sting and not saying WCW wasn't a big stage, but like if Sting and NWO were on WWE, maybe it would have been looked at differently, much more differently in a good way. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go with Rock and Austin. I feel like it's a storyline. A lot of people go back and to be like, oh, back in the day, this was a top storyline. You guys got to watch this Mania match, and how much it meant to the fans. I want to go with Rock and Austin for that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that is a
I felt
good
like,
point you made too. Because when I try to put people on, I'm always like, go to WrestleMania 17.
All they gotta really
yeah,
look at is that highlight for that WrestleMania match with the Limp Bizkit.
Yes, yeah,
Forget about it.
the
You don't need
promo,
nothing else.
my
Nothing
way.
else. Nothing
Yeah,
yeah,
more. It's like my way. Okay, cool. We got you. I'm
you
hooked.
got me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So Rock versus Austin moved on in that round in that matchup. Next matchup, Joel, we're gonna start off with you with this one. I already know your answer. Zayn versus Owens versus Tommy Dreamer versus Raven. Who was the better feud in between these two?
I love Zayn and Owens, but Raven is my guy. Raven and Dreamer, I gotta give this to. The storyline that they have, I bought the whole DVD of the little like they put all of them together compilation of it. Um, Starting out and having it like a childhood set storyline, like they went to camp. That's when they born Beulah because Tommy used to bully her and Raven because he was like the jock of the football team and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
then Dreamer never getting the big win over Raven, getting the win but never getting the title, which we've talked about because I believe that's my hot take with Cody. That's what should happen with Cody. Should always get close but never get it till
yeah,
he's about to retire. Um, but yeah, just to build up with that and Raven with the promos of just basically mind fucking with Tommy and just getting in his head, making sure that he never wins those big ones is just something that caught my eye. Raven will always be one of my favorite people to listen to promos because of the way he delivers it and just the way he makes you feel when he's telling the story of their childhood and trying to bring you back and trying to make you picture. So everything all together, that's why I picked Dreamer versus Raven. Sami Zayn and Owens, you can go back to Ring of Honor and everything they've done. It's incredible. I just gotta go with Dreamer and Raven. Nothing against Zayn and Owens though.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Angel, who do you think was a better feud between these two?
I mean, Joel said it best. I mean, nothing on Zayn and Owens. You know, their feud has been, I mean, great, running on so many different promotions.
Yeah.
You know, and still to this day, you can still put them together, and there's going to be a banger. And you can make a twist on why who screwed who. You know, and it'll make
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
Dream and Raven, man, I had to go back to this one. I'm like, damn. Like I remember seeing it, and I'm like, I can't stand Raven. Why is he doing this to Dreamer like that? You know, when ECW was running at 1 in the morning, I'm watching it, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. But yeah, I have to give it to Dreamer and Raven. Like Raven, he put over matches, he put over the storyline, like little bits and pieces, and like you said, how they brought it back from childhood, and it made you actually think about. It's like, man, this guy's a
Yeah.
dick. You know, it's
You're
like
like, is
he
Tommy an
actually,
asshole?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then you look at Tommy Dreamer, is like, man, did you really do those things? It's like, come on, it was so dope, especially back then. Like, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have anything really to spoil you anything, so you had to come back
Yeah.
and watch this. So I'm definitely
Yeah.
gonna give the Dreamer and Raven on this one.
I mean, I wish like Dreamer versus Raven when I was looking this one up because I also wasn't a fan during this time either. And I was like, this is one of the things where it's like I wish I was a fan during that time to be like, it seems
Yeah.
kind of dope. So,
Definitely.
but for me, I'm gonna go with Sammy and I almost said Sammy and Zayn, Zayn and Owens, because I don't want them to get swept. I mean, this is a storyline that I kind of watched from the start in WWE.
Yeah.
With the whole turn of Kevin Owens in NXT, them being best friends, and they built up so well in that storyline, and like, oh, they would never do anything harm. They wouldn't cause any harm with each other at any point. And the whole heel turn happened when he caught like, during the championship match, power bombed him to the side of the ring, and all their history after that, from main event, not main eventing, but when they faced 2 years ago or 3 years ago, 1-on-1, to then main eventing WrestleMania together. Even though they're not feuding now, I think the whole story of like them hating each other to going back to loving each other to then hating each other back and forth a little bit. I just love that emotional connection that it brings to the fans.
Yeah.
It really draws out a lot of people from that. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Zayn versus Owens in that one. I
And
know they're not winning and they already lost, but
and what's cool
I
about
just,
Zayn and Owens is like they were the first storyline that WWE acknowledged
Their past
previous
history.
things. Yeah, like that wasn't
yeah,
WCW. They would only talk about stuff if it happened in WCW. This was the first time that people came in from the indies and they were like they're best friends, but also they have a spotty history.
Yeah,
So they kind of
PWG,
like
Ring of
yeah, they
Honor. Yeah, they were touching on it. Yeah.
yep.
even as someone who didn't know that stuff prior to that, it made me feel something. It's like, yo, they were best friends. Why the fuck would Owens do that?
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
They gave
So it
you
really,
they gave you that clean slate of okay, his friend is coming into this company just to
Yeah.
rip it away
exactly,
from you.
Yep.
exactly. And then that really like started the. I don't know how bad of a good of a heel he was prior to that, but it really, since then, Kevin Owens' heel run in WWE was like one of the best I've ever seen in a while.
Well, Owens,
So
he
it was
was a
like
savage in these.
Yeah, so I was
exactly,
nervous when he got signed because with his first introduction, I was like, they're treating him like a babyface. Is he gonna be a babyface?
Yeah,
Like,
it's like what? That's not you.
yeah, I was like, that doesn't make
yeah,
sense. So it was when it finally happened, I was like, okay, I could finally
Yeah,
breathe. Like they're gonna treat him right here.
yeah,
and they did. They treated him right, and I
Yeah,
felt like, uh, I don't know. I just felt like that story was it made you it. There were just different emotions going on from that point on between them two. Like I said, they teamed up with each other at one point as heels. They went up against each other a couple of times. Went back to being a tag team as a baby faces. So
yeah.
it was like a roller coaster of different emotions in a good way, to where it's like this is a great storyline between them two. So that's why I had to choose them.
Oh, yeah.
Next matchup we have is the Taker versus Kane feud going up against Rock versus Cena. I'm gonna start this one off. This was tough. This
This
is a
is a
tough one.
tough one. This is a
It
tough
is.
one.
It is.
you
But I
can't
think
be.
I might because you can really go back with both of these. Like Taker versus
Yeah,
Kane started when? Like early
90,
2000s
97,
maybe? Or yeah,
97,
'97.
before then.
97.
Yeah.
Yeah, back during
Um,
'97.
and it kind of went on to like 2010, I would say.
Yeah,
2000s, yeah, late
Yeah.
2000s.
So it lasted a while, even though it was on and off. It was like it still went on for a while. Then you had Brock versus Cena, who was supposed to be once in a lifetime, ended up being twice. Um, to being,
got us.
yeah, it got us, and it
They
was
got
like
us.
it was tough. I think I might go with Taker versus Kane with this one because I loved Rock versus Cena. You had two the biggest stars in their time who, me personally, didn't think this match would ever happen. Um, and then it did happen. Then the whole storyline of Cena trying to get a redemption on Rock, great story. But like, if you're gonna make it a big once in a lifetime opportunity thing, you know, you could have just not advertised it that way.
Yeah,
In a sense, it was kind of weird. Great story, but kind of weird. And the story between Taker and Kane of how Kane debuted, the introduction to Kane and everything that led there with your brothers coming back with Paul Bearer, seeing all that stuff. Um, to then, like I said in 2010 with the Buried Alive match, with I think Kane beat Taker. The whole story of brother versus brother just captivated me personally. So I had to go with Taker and Kane. Joel, who do you think was a better storyline, a better feud?
nah, I'm gonna let Angel go first. I'll let Angel
Oh,
go
Angel, go.
first. Go
So,
first.
All right. Well, one, Rock versus Cena. They won't get my vote, right? Because of it was more of like it started out like behind the scene personal stuff than them
yeah,
jabbing at each other, and then it became an on screen. But it was dope. It was cool how they set
Yeah,
it up. I was in it. But Taker versus Kane, man, like that seeing Kane debut in '97 to all their matches and feuds and thinking that, oh, my brother's gonna get back to me and then he turns on you kind of thing. It
yeah,
was so cool. And the piece that made it interesting was Paul Bearer when he said, how Undertaker kind of left Kane behind. I was like, Taker, you're an asshole for leaving your brother, like kind of
yeah,
thing. And then when they
yeah,
were tag teaming, like who could stop, Brothers of Destruction? There was no one stopping them.
exactly.
Their feud was so dope. They could, turn on each other on a drop of a dime, and everyone will still love it. So my
Yeah,
vote is definitely Kane and Taker for that one. Yeah,
yeah. I understand. I loved how Paul Bearer was just in the middle at times
yeah,
to be like he's not on either side. But at first he was on Kane's, but it was like he was still kind of in the middle because they were kind of like his kids, I guess.
yeah.
yeah,
So it made sense.
He was like that
Joel,
glue piece. Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, yeah, that glue piece. Joel, who was a better feud?
Oh, it's Taker and Kane. They getting Rock and Cena getting swept. Taker and Kane, and I would just base this off the build up to it. Paul Bearer for months saying your brother's alive, your brother's coming.
Yeah,
Undertaker having promos at the gravesite of his parents, talking to the
yeah,
tombstones, like, yo,
yeah,
my brother's coming back. I'm happy he's safe, but I'm gonna have to take him. You know what I mean? Like the build up to
yeah,
that. The first time we actually saw someone that had Undertaker shook in the ring. That when Kane was walking up, they just showed Undertaker's face that he just couldn't believe it. He didn't know what was
yeah,
happening. The whole build up to WrestleMania that year with him versus Shawn at Royal Rumble, Kane coming out, putting the casket on fire, Undertaker coming back, them doing, because back then that's when they had the supernatural powers. Kane throwing
yeah,
fire at him, he throwing storms. It was just, it was ridiculous and it was awesome. It was fucking
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
gotta give it to Taker and Kane, and that's only for the first year.
yeah.
Just from their first year, I put them over Rock and Cena.
yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. Um, Next matchup, we got Ray versus Dom going up against Austin versus Vince McMahon.
It's my
Um,
favorite.
Yeah. So, so real quick, me and Nick talked about this before you came out
yeah,
because we were looking at the bracket, and I was like, so there's certain people that would have a better fight if they weren't up against certain people.
Yes.
So like Ray and
yeah,
Dom, like if Ray and Dom went up against Zayn and Owens, it would be a better back
Yes.
and forth. You know what I mean? Of
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
who's it gonna
That's
be?
why I
But
randomized it.
then
That's why.
Austin and Vince versus Ray and Dom, it's like
It's like, who's winning this one?
I wonder who we're
Yeah,
gonna pick.
exactly. Yeah. Well, Joel, you wanted to start off anyways?
I'll kick it off.
Yeah,
Austin and Vince. I'm not even gonna give you explanation. Just you know, come on.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
Feud
Even
and
as
Vince.
someone like I've seen tons of, I wasn't a fan then either. Like I was later on, but I always see clips of their storylines, and I feel like most of their interactions was like Austin on the ramp, Vince in the ring. Um,
Or him
the whole
driving a
storyline
vehicle
eventually
to the
leading.
ring. Always something.
Yeah,
It was always something.
this was the storyline with like um, ah, why am I forgetting the names? That group, the ministry. This is the ministry stuff,
No
right?
Fear
Or was it
Darkness.
before
Yeah.
that? Yeah. So that whole
This was
storyline of Vince
well went
being,
through the years, but when it really first started was '97. He was like
yeah,
the first guy beating up his boss. Like, come on,
Yeah, like who the hell
that's
does
fucking
that? Like
sick.
what?
yeah,
And he's
yeah,
still walking
What's up?
around with the belt, like he didn't get
Word.
no repercussions. Like, come
He's
on.
like, Austin, you can't do that.
yeah, yeah. That really showed like how Austin was as a character to be like, I don't care who you are. If you're my boss, I'll beat you up too. So I'm gonna choose
Yeah,
Austin and Vince then.
I feel like
But
this really put him over the top because it was like it
yeah,
was always like he was against everybody, and then once he won
yeah,
the title, it was like okay, Vince could get it too. Fuck it, you know what I mean? It was
yeah,
like
yeah,
nobody's off limits now.
Yeah, because Vince
yeah.
wanted to button him up, suit and tie him.
Yeah,
He's like, get out of here. It's not happening.
Exactly, exactly. So Angel, who you gonna go up against? Who you gonna choose
Well,
for this one?
I'm gonna go with Austin and Vince. But I wanna shed some
let's
light
show
on
some
Ray and
love. Let's
Dom.
show
You
some
know,
love.
the
Yeah,
fact that this is happening at Dom is showcasing stuff that I thought he would never showcase. Like he's like
yeah,
Eddie Guerrero 2.0 kind of thing, and he's feeling it. Like he like I'm a Judgment Day fan. Like
Yeah,
I'm
you
loving the
bring their
whole
shirt. Yeah,
the like it's so cool that this happened. Like when was the last time we've seen a father son feud?
yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen it. You know,
yeah,
especially
yeah,
how they're doing it. Like they had their tag team run, which was pretty dope, and then Dom getting manipulated by Rhea and whatnot, and then the feud that they had building up to Mania was ridiculous. It's like, yo, he's going into his house, fucking his
That's
father
yeah,
up
amazing.
during the
Yeah,
holidays,
yeah, yeah,
and yo, it was like, yo, this is so, and it's still continuing. They're not fighting, but he still throws
yeah,
jabs at my deadbeat dad kind of thing,
yeah.
and
It's definitely gotta be Dom and Ray for Ray's last match, right?
yeah. It
I
has to
hope
be.
so. I mean, I hope so. Like they have to. There's going to be a point in time where Dom is going to have to, I guess, reconsole with his pops and whatnot, and that'll probably be like Ray's, swan song. But
Yeah,
it's dope to see that it's currently happening, and I'm sure we're going to see a little bit more once Ray gets back.
yeah, definitely. And
Yeah,
Dom has really come into himself and really like
Yeah,
with his
as
personality as well. Like in the
alone,
yeah,
ring, he was always like good and was like, if he keeps going, like he's gonna become
but now
super
the
nice.
character's there. The character's
yeah.
there.
Yeah, now he's
Like,
got
Getting
everything.
away from his dad was like the best thing that could have happened. And we talked about
yeah,
this for
Yeah,
years,
because his
Joel. It's like,
personality was he was Ray's son. He didn't have no personality,
yeah,
and that's why
and
he
yeah,
needed to get away from that.
yeah.
It wasn't that we didn't want to see him with Ray. It was cool while it was happening, but then it was like, we need something else. There's
It
no
wasn't. I was
personality.
tired of seeing Ray jump on his fucking back
Yeah,
already.
yeah, yeah. That's true. Every single entrance, he was on his back. Like, Jesus
He's like,
Christ.
dude, come on, get off his back, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, he should have do that
That's funny.
in a promo or something like that. I was tired of you jumping on my back. Like I was tired of
Yeah,
carrying
yeah.
you.
You can walk by yourself, man. I know what
Yeah, I'm
to
tired of
carry you
carrying.
for. Yeah.
what's up, Ray, man? What a
uh,
guy.
yeah. I mean, shout out to them too. I mean, like, I love that storyline, but
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
to go
Yeah,
against any other feud
it's
in this
tough.
bracket,
It's like a number one seat to like a 8 seed right there.
Yeah,
It's like
the
yeah, I
the
guess, yeah.
play-in
the
team.
wild card.
Yeah,
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 facts.
the play into. Yeah. So yeah, Austin versus Vince moves on. Next matchup. This is also a tough one. You got the Hardys versus Edge versus and Christian versus the Dudleys, going up against Usos versus the New Day. Who Angel? I'm gonna start with you this one. Put you in the hot seat. Who was the
Man,
better feud between these two?
man. Well, Hardy's, Edge and Christian Dudley's like just blew up tag team wrestling like to a whole
Yeah.
nother like atmosphere. their matches, their table matches, TLC matches, whatever kind of matches they were in, was fire. It was dope. It made everybody better. Because now these names are household names now because
Yep.
of those matches.
Hmm.
But Usos and New Day, they were actually able to have those matches as well. But they actually got to do the promos. They got to talk a little bit more. And
Yeah.
those were, from, like I said, me is storyline based. I need to be pulled in. So I'm gonna go with the Usos New Day, just for the simple fact, not the matches. Matches are pretty much even. It was just the promos, how they brought up the matches. How, like, I could go back to one promo where the Usos is like, "Yo, hold your boy Woods down. Don't make this rated R." Something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with the
That's
rap
all.
It was
battle,
a
yeah.
rap. Yeah, it was a
Bringing
rap
that,
battle. Yeah.
bringing that out is like, it was cool to have that and build those matches up, and just the chemistry they had together in the ring on the mic. That I think they'll just get that slight edge from me though.
I mean, same. I mean, this was tough, but like, I feel like I agree with you with the Usos and New Day stuff, but it was just, I feel like without the Hardys, Edge and Christian, and Dudley's match, that story, I feel like that was the beginning for tag team wrestling, like you also said. I feel like without that, we probably wouldn't get a lot of tag teams now. Like that was just the start of tag
Yeah,
team
because that was
wrestling.
at a time that they were weird with tag teams, and then
Yeah,
all of a sudden,
Yeah.
them three popped off, and was like, "Ah, yeah, we're doing tag matches."
yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
then like I loved Usos versus New Day, but like I said, the only reason I'm giving it to the Hardys, Edge and Christian and Dudley's is because of not just the matches themselves, but how much that meant to tag team wrestling for years later. Um, so with that slide, I'd have to give it to the Hardys, Edge and Christian and Dudley's.
Cool.
Joel with the tiebreaker here, you're gonna choose
Yo,
the buzzer beater.
you
Shoot your
know the
shot.
Hardys are my boys. The Hardys are my
Yeah,
boys.
yeah.
We know that.
But I'm giving it to Usos and New Day
Oh,
because, like Angel said, they actually gave them time for a story. If you think
yeah,
about all the TLCs, there's no story. They just having a match to have a match. They have the tag belts are on the line. The Hardys end up being number one contenders. Somehow Edge and Christian find their way in, or vice versa. There was never really a story. Never really did promos to build it up. Match is phenomenal. Like they held it down. That like you even said they changed tag wrestling from there. Like it was big in the '80s. Then no one gave a fuck in the '90s about tag wrestling, and then it got big again with these three teams. But the Usos and New Day, it was during a time that because they were feuding for a couple years, and it
yeah.
went from because I think their first startup feud was like 2014, but the one that got hot was 2016, and that was because
Hmm.
SmackDown was hot at that time, and the promos were insane. Like Angel said, they were doing rap battles, they were doing everything. They even had an elimination chamber tag match, which
Yeah, I
was
remember that.
something I never know why they don't go back to that because that was such a cool concept and such a
Yeah,
cool idea. And they've
Yeah,
done, and then their matches, like we said, are even against the Hardys, Edge and Christian Dudley's. But with the Edge, like Angel said, with them being able to actually tell a story and have storylines, I gotta give it to the Usos and New Day.
that's fair. That's fair. I mean,
I
that is
remember
true.
that pre-show match that New Day Usos had that killed it for the rest of the night. It's like, yo, they just had
Yeah,
this match
I
on a
think so. Yeah.
pre-show, and that's all people were talking about was the pre-show match. It was like, yo, that's wild.
I think
No
that
one
was
has a great pre-show match like that
yeah,
anymore.
that is true.
Yeah,
Because that was like
that
a
is true.
big thing when I think that was 2015, right? That was
Yeah,
before
the
the
day
the
one stuff.
SmackDown boom. Yeah, because
Yeah,
when the
I was,
SmackDown boom happened, it was like, nah, these guys they usually kicked off the pay per view,
yeah,
the
yeah.
Yeah,
SmackDown pay per views.
That
yeah,
was
that is
really
true.
fun.
That
Man,
is true.
Usos been on it, man. I'm
I
heartbroken. They're
know.
broken up right now, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
they've
yeah.
been one of my favorites for a while, man. I had the T-shirt when they had the paint on them. Come on,
all word.
shout out
Damn.
to
Yeah,
What
Usos,
up?
those are
man.
fire stuff. Fire stuff. So, yeah, New Usos New Day move on. Now next matchup we have Daniel Bryan versus the Authority taking on MJF versus CM Punk. I'm gonna start this one off actually.
Kick it off,
I'm
man.
gonna choose Daniel Bryan versus the Authority. I think MJF versus CM Punk was kind of short lived. Um, I feel like if CM Punk didn't get suspended for during the first All In or All Out, I think the story would have continued and probably would have been a lot better than what we had seen.
More
Um,
added onto
Again,
it. Yeah.
yeah, definitely would have added on to it. I mean, I feel like like we said, what we've seen, it was not much out of them too. Oh, we got a special guest. Nice.
Some homie.
Um, yeah, but yeah, I love Daniel Bryan versus the Authority. That really put Daniel Bryan on the map in WWE.
Yeah.
In WWE.
Yeah, for people to start taking him seriously, because a lot of people weren't
Exactly.
sold on him, even though it's like, why weren't you? Like, come on.
He was always treated as the underdog in WWE, but it wasn't until this storyline that made him like the guy
Yeah.
in WWE. Um, the Authority, everyone hated at that time. Like they were great heels, not like annoyed as in like, oh, get them off my TV. They were like everyone was pissed off at them too. Like, you know, Triple H put him over. They had the 2 matches that one night at Mania. Then that led him to winning the title at Mania that year, the same night. So I feel like this really put Daniel Bryan on the map there. Told a great story with it. That promo package for WrestleMania that year explains it all. One of the
Yeah.
best packages we've seen in a while at that time. Even till this day, one of the best
Yeah, that's a
promo
great one.
packages. So I'm gonna have to give that one to Bryan versus Authority. I mean, again, just the MJF versus CM Punk was short lived. I really didn't see much of it, so I can't really give that one a vote yet. Joel, who would you give in this one?
So I love the MJF and CM Punk storyline. I thought it was awesome. I thought the matches they had were incredible. I think the story with Punk leaving and like leaving like MJF not knowing what to do with his life was cool, because it was like that's how a lot of people, well, not in life but like in wrestling, like why did he leave? Like, what the fuck? Like, a lot
Yeah,
of people probably felt that way. Like, this guy just got up and left and didn't really care about us as fans. And it was cool to have that in a storyline, because it was a real life thing, because that's what people felt like as fans at that time, especially if you were younger. Because I remember
yeah,
when he left, I was already, I think I was already in high school. So I was like, it still like was like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like he just
yeah,
left. When is he coming back? Like, what the fuck? Is this a storyline? Is it not? So him and MJF telling that story, and then having all those matches, and especially the dog collar one that was incredible and told an incredible story. All the matches were incredible. Bryan and the Authority was a special time. It was a special time, and it was something that we've never seen before. Especially that they were actually listening to the fans. Even though it didn't seem that way at first, all they were listening to us. Not all along, but somewhere down the line, something clicked in somebody's head and said, "We gotta go with Bryan." And then the whole build up with him and Triple H, and it all
yeah,
started at SummerSlam when he won, got cashed in on,
yeah,
um, because Triple H and the pedigree. Like, it was a whole thing that happened. And just started off of then, and then the whole Authority thing, and the best for business, and you're a B plus player. I always loved that line. You're a B
yeah,
plus player, and
Stephanie
it
made
was,
that great.
yeah, like, it was awesome. And then to have him actually go to Mania and win the belt and overcome that, and like you said, he fought twice that night against one of the greatest of all time in Triple H, and then having to go against his Evolution counterparts in the main event and coming out victorious was incredible. Like, we've talked about this, I wish I got to enjoy that moment, but Brock decided to ruin that, so I had to go back and watch it on replay to actually appreciate it. But that is one of the biggest what ifs in wrestling, I feel. If Bryan never gets injured after that, because I feel like that summer would have been incredible with him as
yeah,
champion, and they kind of like not took it from us, but we weren't able to really appreciate him as a champion in WWE. But
Yeah.
other than that, I gotta go with Bryan and the Authority.
Angel, who do you have between these two
Um,
feuds?
well, I wanted to elaborate on the MGF CM Punk. I'm gonna go with Bryan and the Authority, but I'll jump on both.
Yeah,
But the CM Punk MJF, I wanted to throw because AEW is still kind of fresh. Um,
Yeah,
I felt like this was like one of their top storylines that they produced so far.
yeah,
And like Joel said about MJF being a fan, being upset with CM Punk leaving, or just like, wow, what do I do? Where do I fit in? Should I
Yeah.
just follow that as well and not continue wrestling in that sense? It was cool because a lot of people have that sentiment. It's like, man, I grew up loving this dude. I went to see this dude, and then he just dips on
Yeah.
us. It's like, I don't even want to do this no more. Like, it was a time where when Hulk Hogan left WWE, and I was like, I was pissed. I was a
Oh
Hulk
yeah.
Hogan. I was a Hulkamaniac, and I'm like,
Yeah.
he left. Like, I was really pissed, and I was like, I'm not even messing with him. No, I'm not even touching WCW. I didn't care for him. Like, I was. That's how mad I was as a kid. So I could kind of feel it. So that's what made me feel that promo, that whole storyline. The dog collar match was. Actually watched it the other night while I was at work, and I'm like, yo, this was fire.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you don't see stuff like this anymore. Like, and it's because the storyline drew me in. Like, if there's
Hmm.
no storyline behind it, it's like, you just having a match just to have it. But that
Yeah.
storyline was fantastic because both counterparts made it work. But
Yeah.
Brian and the Authority, it was organic. Like, I don't think they had an idea that this that Brian was going to be so over the way that. When
Yeah.
remember that time on
Yeah.
Raw, had all the WWE champions, past champions, and they were just chanting for Brian, and he
Yes.
couldn't even stop
Yeah.
smiling. Like, Mark Henry was looking over, like they were trying to not break
Yeah.
their character, but it was like, yo, this dude is hot right now, and I think, like Joel says, somebody got something, and then they just have to egg it on. It's like, they're gonna give us a little bit. They're gonna give us a little bit, and the Authority was the perfect piece for that. To
Yeah.
call him that B+ player, to give him a little and then snatch it away, kind of thing. And it started with when he won the title at SummerSlam,
Yeah. SummerSlam.
kind of
The
thing.
cash in.
So it was the
Yeah.
cash, and it was like, oh man, they finally gave it to him, and they cashed in on him. So it was cool. Like, that was a time, and just me being at WrestleMania 30 to witness it was insane. I had a horse throat for like a couple of days, but just being there, I was nervous. I was excited. It was so wild that night, and then just to see Brian actually win the titles and just battle through, it was so cool. But yeah, definitely Brian and the Authority for that one.
And this was also the start of for the MJF and CM Punk. It was also the start of the Devil. So if we're into this feud, we wouldn't see the
Oh
Devil
yeah.
today.
True. Yeah.
So
Mm,
you also think of that to play it in. But
You know,
yeah,
yeah,
what's also crazy? Real quick, join the Brian and Authority storyline. I even forgot he joins the Wyatt family at a moment
that was during. I thought that
because
was
it was kind
before.
of like a side. Yeah, he had like a side storyline with the Wyatt family.
oh yeah, they
That
did
was
try to sidetrack us with
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah. Remember,
yeah,
because he even joined the Wyatt family. They had that steel
yeah,
cage match. That's when he turns on Wyatt. But they had you thinking like, yo, they dead just like discoursed in
yeah.
WrestleMania. Like they're not gonna give us what we wanted at all.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That is true. Next matchup we have Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero taking on Adam Copeland versus Christian Cage. Joel, who do you think was the better
Why you gotta
feud
do
between the
this
two?
to me, Nick? So
Yeah, someone's gonna start
I've
with this
been
one.
I've been saying it all year. Christian Cage has been the MVP in AEW. You can make your argument for MJF, Adam Cole. He's brought that TNT title back to life. Him and Copeland doing their storyline, awesome. It's been great. Even the stuff that they did back in the day, but now it's like just so much better because I think we actually take Christian seriously. Like AEW let us take Christian seriously. I don't think WWE ever let us take him
Yeah.
seriously. So I think that's why it's working so well right now. Awesome storyline. But Ray and Eddie is something else. Ray and Eddie goes back to even their days way younger than ECW and stuff, them knowing each other, the matches that they've had, the storylines that they've had. Gotta talk about the custody ladder match.
Hmm.
And even the last match that they had, the steel cage match on SmackDown, was incredible. And then them having that kind of Zayn and Owens friendship that they love each other but hate each other. They love each other, then they hate each other. And it was also always cool to see that because they weren't supposed to have those storylines at first. they were cruiserweights. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you weren't supposed to be taking them seriously. They were just supposed to put on a cool match and do whatever they do. So that's what they did in WCW. But then when they got to WWE, they actually gave them the the platform to actually do
Yeah.
storylines, do promos against each other with two guys that companies didn't want to do that beforehand. And then not only having the storylines with it, but the matches to also go up with it and exceed expectations. But again, one of the biggest storylines that always had me was the custody of Dominic. Him coming out reading the story. He's got reading his little book live on SmackDown. Ray comes out screaming at him. And it's just one of those things that is just like you can see just with that promo alone the chemistry that they have. And that really helped with their overall legacy because if not, it would be kind of like who were we talking about before that was like, oh, they just had, oh, like the Hardys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudleys. Like before WWE, they would just have matches to have matches together in WCW. I mean, they would have like little storylines here and there, but it was like a match just to have a match. Kind of like what AEW does now with like the dream matches, just a match to have a match.
Yeah.
But like I said, when they got to WWE, getting to expand on that and getting to actually show that they can be big stars in the company and people care about them. And I think that's a big reason why Eddie got his title shot because of storylines like that with Ray. And that's another reason why they trusted Ray because they knew people cared about him because they saw in certain storylines when Eddie was a heel, people would side with Ray because of not even just because of the storyline, but just because they loved Rey Mysterio. So when Eddie passed, they were like, oh, we could give this guy the belt because of the way the fans reacted to him. So I think this storyline does a lot for the history of WWE, even though we don't think about it. But because of these two guys, we're able to take a Seth Rollins seriously as champion. You know what I mean? The smaller guys, AJ winning the belt and not batting an eye, saying this is what it's supposed to be because of Ray and Eddie. And I think that doesn't happen if we don't get those storylines in the early 2000s from them.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Angel, who do you have, Ray versus Eddie or Adam Copeland versus Christian Cage?
Um, I like. I'm gonna go with Ray and Eddie on this one, and I'm gonna back up Joel on everything he said as far as the smaller wrestler. Um, no one with smaller wrestlers were pretty much just like a sideshow. It was like, yo, check these guys out, and WCW used to take advantage of that. But back in WCW, they would that's what people wanted to see. They were bangers,
Yeah.
It was like so the matches that Ray and Eddie had, WCW, ECW, and then when they got to WWE, it's like, okay, cool. Now we can throw some story in there. Now we can make something happen. And they gave him the ball to run with it. Eddie's a great work on the mic. He can make you feel everything that he's talking about. The fact that he was telling a story about Dom and whatnot. It was creepy, but it was cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like,
It was different. It was
Yeah.
like,
I was thinking of Ray's wife a little differently. I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
But and the fact that they also told the story that Eddie Guerrero never beat Rey Mysterio, and he was frustrated about it. He was like, "Yo, I'm gonna get my win somehow, some way," But the way they played it out was perfectly, and I definitely got to give it to Eddie and Ray.
Yeah, me too. I want to have to go with Ray versus Eddie. I think Joel, you pretty much said it all. I think that Adam Copeland and Christian Cage was not a bad feud. Just
it's great going right now.
it's
What
yeah.
they've been able to do.
I think it's still fresh and new. It's
Yeah.
still going on. Um, and even with the Ray versus Eddie, Dom still brings it up to this day that Eddie is his father. That story still lives on in WWE till this day.
Yeah, man, that's
A story that
Um,
we didn't think we would remember
That's
years
exactly.
after.
no.
Exactly. So I think that the fact that this still is in the minds of all wrestling fans that who were fans at the time says a lot. And that was just one match out of the whole entire feud. So again, I just had to go with Ray and Eddie because of their history and how long they've been I just love that match, that ladder match. That was like one of like even though I wasn't a fan then either, it was like something that I look back on and be like, damn, I wish I was around just to kind of see this happen in real time. Um,
Yeah,
but
that ladder
yeah,
match was great. It
with
has one of my favorite moments from wrestling ever when Vicky forgets to come out and he
What?
slams on the where the fuck is Vicky? Where
Ricky,
yeah.
the
Ricky.
fuck?
uh, but yeah, Ray versus Eddie moved on. Now the last matchup in the first round, we got Trish Stratus versus Mickey James taking on
Yeah.
Sami Zayn versus the Bloodline story. Um, Angel, you want to start this one off?
Yeah, I'll run with this one. Man, Zayn and Bloodline, man, like it's still fresh, and it was great. It was cool.
Yeah,
The fact that I think they didn't have anything for Zayn, and they just kind of put him in, and it just
yeah,
worked. He made it work. Anything that Zayn touches, it works. But Trisha and Mickey, yo, like Mickey James is no joke. Like she's badass in the ring, character wise. When she first came into WWE, like I was intrigued by it because and then Trish just played it off well. Their matches were great. So as far as my voting is gonna be Trish and Mickey. I'm gonna go
okay,
there. But yeah, that Trish Mickey feud with the stalker, the love fest that she had for her, it always brings me back to that locker room segment where she gave Trish a kiss. And I was like, what? Like you were just like a fanatic, and then you're obsessed with her. You have a love interest, and then how it played out in the matches was crazy. Like that, I think they blurred it out now on the match itself on
Yep.
Peacock, where she licked her hand after touching her cooch and shit. It was
oh
like,
yeah,
what?
that was one.
They made sure to
Mickey
edit that
Mickey
now.
James. I don't think anybody else could have pulled that off, but these two, Mickey made it work. It was perfect. Trish played it off perfectly, and they rocked for it for a while. I think they even had like weren't they like in the Royal Rumble at one point
Yeah.
together, and they kind of like looked at each other's like, yo, I remember you.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
so yeah, I definitely love that storyline. The feud is great. So yeah, Trish and Mickey.
So I'm gonna go with Zayn versus the Bloodline because not just because it was just fresh and new and something that we just saw. I just think that it's one of the best storylines we've seen in recent time. Again, like you said, Angel, it was just something that Zayn was just put into at first, and then ended up becoming one of the most talked about storylines for the next year or so. And the fact that it ended when it did with Zayn turning on Roman like a year ago to having to face him for the championship in his hometown, um, the reactions that got from the crowds, you know, there was a point in the Royal Rumble last year where I felt like, oh shit, I forgot that Rhea and Cody won the Rumbles because they made that night about that storyline
Mhm.
and it focused heavily on that. And it led to a cool moment with Sammy and Kevin Owens winning the tag belts at Mania. And it created that special moment too uh, in WrestleMania. And that main evented WrestleMania. So I just felt like that was just a more special moment that we saw in wrestling. Again, I was not around for Trish and Mickey, so like I didn't really
I
know about
gotta go
that too
back
much
to
till
that
like afterwards.
one.
I only saw clips of it. There's another something I saw clips of it. And I'm like, damn, I wish, you know what I mean. You got to go back and like watch it and like I feel like
Yeah.
it'll be different as a fan watching it live at that time. So I don't know. I just have to go with Zayn versus Bloodline. Joel again, tiebreaker. Who do you choose?
I love Zayn and Bloodline, but it's Trish and Mickey. I think
Ooh,
Trish and Mickey was just it was just out of nowhere. That was Mickey's introduction to us.
yeah, that
Especially me
forgot
that I
about that
didn't
too.
know her from anywhere else beforehand. So that was my introduction to her. And then it was also cool because it was like when I first saw her, I was like, okay, this is what they're gonna do now. Like the women are gonna start wrestling like this. Like this is
Yeah,
cool because before it was just we had Trish and Lita, which people romanticize because I'm not a big fan of Trish and Lita. Trish and Victoria, then we could talk about because Victoria's fucking nasty in the ring.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when Mickey came along and she was wrestling like Victoria, like actually wrestling, I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then giving the story that they did, and me being a child watching a woman kiss another woman live on television, I was like, I'm here for this.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you, Vince. Shout out Raw, baby.
Yeah.
But then the storyline of her, like Angel said, becoming from a super fan to just a creepy stalker and like obsessing over her, loving her, and then having that match at Mania, which was incredible because I feel like that was really the I feel like that match was the kickoff of like we're gonna try and take women seriously. Now,
yeah,
after that, it was a little spotty because it was just the women that they had. It was tough, but then we didn't get that till down the line with the women's revolution. But I feel like this really like kicked it off. That was like, all right, so women can actually go and have a storyline, like a real months built out, because the
Mhm.
women never really had a storyline like that. It would always involve a man. It was never just the two women having this crazy ass storyline. So, from my recollection, this was like the first one I remember, and I think that's why it drew me in so much. So that's why I gotta go with Trish and Mickey.
that's fair. That's fair. I mean, I thought the Bloodline Zayn was gonna win this one.
Nah,
Yeah,
that's an incredible
it
storyline.
was.
I just feel I don't know, man. Trish and Mickey was just different. Like I said, like
It was
it pulled
different.
me into actually take start taking
Like
women
if you
seriously.
think about it, like there weren't really any women feuds,
Yeah,
like big
Yeah,
time
there was like
storyline.
one.
It was like if you really think about it, it wasn't really much, especially in the WWE era. It's like you can go back and find banging matches and Impact or somewhere else, but there's no real story behind it. No, there's no feud. The feud with Lita and Trish is like, all right,
it was
that's what
just
they
their best
talk about.
friends. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
they're
was like
friends. But this one was like you said, it was months of a build up. With Trish even befriending her. It's like, all right, cool, we'll
yeah,
be buddy buddy, and then
Yeah,
because
find
that was
out she's really feeling her.
yeah,
That
like I said,
yeah,
this
was
was like the
crazy,
first real storyline I remember. Like,
and they
of
gave
course,
him
you were like,
time.
yeah, like Victoria and Trish, you remember like that match at Survivor Series, but the storyline was just she didn't like Trish because she was pretty. That was the storyline. That was it,
Yeah,
and she
yeah,
had the title. There was no like
yeah.
real story. It was like Trish is pretty. She has the title. She has everything. I don't like her. Boom.
yeah.
That's the story. So this actually gave you like months of like who
Build
is
up
this
to.
Mickey James? Why is she
Yeah,
like this?
Yeah, it
Why is
gave
she
him.
so obsessed with Trish? Oh shit, she's into Trish. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
there
It was
was,
the
she's
whole.
and it
It
ended up
crazy.
was
leading to there was more storylines like that afterwards too, like fans coming up from the crowd to be like, this person's a fan of that person, even
Oh
though
yeah,
yeah,
those
yeah,
weren't
yeah.
as
yeah,
big as it is now. But it's like, you know what I mean?
And you see how it didn't really pop off the
yeah.
way
This
Mickey
one
and
did.
Trish
Yeah,
Yeah,
did.
yeah,
that's why it's special, man. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So Trish versus Mickey moved on in that round. So now we into the second round of this
Now we
bracket,
get to the hard part,
the hard hitting
baby.
ones. The first matchup in the second round, we got Rock versus Austin taking on Dreamer versus Raven. Um, I want to start this one off. I want to choose Rock and versus Steve Austin. It's kind of similar to what I said before. I feel like now Rock versus Austin is a feud that if you're trying to introduce someone to wrestling, that's who you're gonna start off with first. The fact that they made again like they main event not main evented were they main events, all three of
Yeah.
them, or okay, so they
Except for
main evented.
19. Except for
yeah,
19.
Okay,
yeah.
so they
Except for
main
Because
19.
evented
19 was
two out of
Trey
the
and
three.
Brock.
Okay, so the fact that they were able to main event two out of the three main events, that says a lot too. That was like the icing on the cake, or
Yeah,
is that the right saying? Icing on the cake, yeah.
Yeah.
To kind of solidify this as like a great feud. The fact that they trusted them two to be the main event of two different WrestleManias, not in a row. Um, so there was two separate stories that they had. That was the best story on that card. To be like, hey, you guys are going to be the main event. Um, Two heavy hitters, two big names at that time. It's like putting I can't even think Roman versus another big name in WWE right now, like 3 years in a row. To be like, here you go, we trust you. Um, I know we saw like Brock versus Roman a couple of times in the main event, but those weren't like
It was
those
a
was like
different
scattered.
reaction. Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
different
yeah,
reaction
yeah.
than
Yeah.
Rock and Austin.
yeah, but it's
People were
kind of
like,
like that. They main
again? Like, what
evented.
the fuck?
Yeah, so it was like it was different, but like it's kind of like that. Like they, but more special
Yeah.
and it said a lot. Like you said before, it was like Steve Austin kind of was like his last match, and I think that was also when The Rock kind of drifted away to Hollywood a little bit during that time. So it was kind of like end of an era, kind of for both, I guess. The fact that they had to end their careers like that, even though The Rock is kind of still going, I just feel like this feud was important to WWE history than Dreamer versus Raven did to wrestling.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to go with Rock versus Austin. Angel, who do you have between the two?
All right. I agree with everything you said about The Rock and Austin. But I'm gonna have to go with Dreamer Raven, man.
Ooh.
Like just the fact how they brought that storyline in, it made me think a lot. Like I didn't you have to think outside the box in a sense with that storyline because you kind of get drawn into it. You know, everyone like has a story that they can remember as being a kid, being bullied and whatnot. And it's like, I remember people by name. So it's like, man, I remember back when I was like 5, 6 years old, this motherfucking Greg dude is like picking me kind of
Yeah.
thing. So, and that's with the Raven Dreamer to be stretched out, to have people captivated. Remember, ECW was a wild crowd. Like, if they didn't like your shit, they won't fuck with you at all.
Yeah.
And the fact that the fans gravitated to that storyline, and then we're just feeding off the energy from both Raven and Tommy Dreamer, and then having Beulah as well. It just worked, and I think I'm just gonna rock. I'm gonna run with them as far as we can because I see that we're getting down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna rock with Dreamer and Raven for a little bit longer before we get down to the nitty gritty. But yeah, I'll rock with them.
Okay. Joel, another time in the hot seat. You're always a tiebreaker in these situations.
This episode I'm in the
Yeah.
hot seat a lot.
Yeah. Who do you got?
So I agree with Nick about Rock and Austin. I agree with you, Angel, about Dreamer and Raven. I gotta go with Dreamer and Raven.
Ooh.
Big Rock and Austin fan, but Dreamer and Raven, I'll with all the storyline, like I said in the first round. But I have a personal connection to this because this was like my introduction to ECW. So I'll always be biased with this storyline because I was introduced to Raven as coming into the WWF, not doing a lot, going to TNA, doing some stuff in TNA, and I was like, oh, he's actually nice in the ring. Cool.
Yeah.
He wasn't cutting the promos like he was in ECW, so I didn't know about that. Got the Rise and Fall of ECW DVD, found out Raven was there. Did a deep dive. This was the first storyline that actually made me care about stories. Like growing up, I just cared about the wrestling. I could care less about the story. Maybe Ray and Eddie I cared about a little bit, but it was more like, let's have this ladder match. Like cool, the storyline's there, but it's just another factor for me. I'm worried about the match. Diving deeper into Raven and Dreamer made me appreciate the storyline of wrestling, like storylines in wrestling, and also what promos could do for certain matches and certain people, and actually build them up and could make you second think, like what Angel said in the first round. That was like, maybe Dreamer is an asshole. Like, what the fuck is he just charading us? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's why I have to go with Dreamer and Raven more on a bias level because it opened my eyes to that kind of wrestling. That was like, now I enjoy storylines and still appreciate the wrestling, but I could see why sometimes storyline is more important than the wrestling.
Okay. That makes sense.
That's the only reason I have to go with them. I love Rock and Austin, but
Enough said.
Dreamer and Raven are just, and like Angel said, I can only run with them for so long.
Yes.
Yeah. I get it. Now I'm gonna start off with you again, Joel, so that way you're not in the hot seat again.
You're the worst, Nick, but okay, let's do it.
Taker versus Kane going up against Austin versus Vince McMahon. Who do you think was the better feud between these two, Joel?
Austin versus Vince. Nothing happens. Like that was like the turning point for WWF because that's when they start to skyrocket after Austin and Vince. But on a storyline level, I'm going with Taker and Kane.
Okay.
I get it. Vince and Austin, they hated each other. Vince wanted him to be more professional. Stone Cold was like, I'm Stone Cold. That's not me. Whatever. Taker and Kane having that drawn out story for like months. Like I said, your brother's coming, Kane
Yeah.
finally coming. Then you have the brother dynamic, which we've talked about many times on this list. With they love each other, they hate each other, they love each other throughout the years. Even when Angel said when they teamed up, who was stopping them? No one. But then again, Kane would always fuck Taker over. Um, you could talk about him, the casket match in '97, the buried alive match at Survivor Series, I think '03 with Vince that he
Mhm.
buried Taker. The match at 20 to introduce Taker back as the dead man. That whole storyline of is he coming back? Oh shit, it is him as the dead man. We didn't know till he came out at Mania. And then I think later down the road they even had a storyline for the heavyweight belt with Paul Bearer in the middle, which was at a time
Yeah.
that I was like on and off with it, but it still captivated me.
It
Anything
is.
with Kane
Yeah.
and Taker was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
always incredible to me. Can't take nothing away from Austin and Vince, but that's why I have to go with Taker and Kane.
I agree with you. I just feel like I'm gonna go with Taker and Kane too because I just love the dynamic of like they did hate each other at one point. They did the Brother Destruction, one of the dominant tag teams at that time. Then going back to feuding with each other and having Paul Bear in the middle to be like, which side is he on? Whose side is he taking? Um, at first it was Kane, I guess, because he introduced him to the company, kind of in a way. So I get it at that point, but it was like he was like stuck in the middle. I think he also made that feud the way it was too. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I love us. I mean, again, I wasn't around at that time watching it. And I feel like that was an important storyline during that time,
Oh,
but I felt
definitely.
like longevity wise, Taker and Kane lasted much longer to be like this is the better feud. So I'm going to go with Taker and Kane on that one. Angel, who do you have between the two?
Here I have Taker Kane, right? Um Taker Kane, like you said, it stretched out for a long period of time. With Austin Vince, it was cool to see, the boss get his ass whooped. And then it after a
Yeah,
while just started getting a little run down. It was like, all right, you're gonna beat him up again. We know it's gonna happen. So if Vince
yeah,
crosses, if he tries to, cross his teeth somehow towards Stone Cold, he's gonna get his ass whipped somehow. And then they're just gonna bring people in. But Taker Kane, man, it was just like you didn't know what was gonna happen, who was gonna screw who kind of thing. Kane always was like that jealous brother in a sense.
yeah,
Even after that
yeah,
they made up and whatnot, he was like, I still got to get one up on you, somehow. But yeah, Kane, and Taker got my vote.
yeah. I mean,
Wasn't expecting a sweep, but
Yeah, I didn't
yeah,
expect
me
that.
neither. I was like, I
but
thought
it
I
maybe you
was,
just
were gonna
I was,
take
it
it.
just
I was
makes
surprised
sense.
with
You
with,
know what I mean?
with,
It
with
just
Nick
makes
there.
sense storyline wise. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta go with Taker and Kane.
Yeah, this show. Next matchup, we got Usos versus New Day taking on Daniel Bryan versus the Authority. Um, I'm gonna start this one off. I'm gonna go with Usos versus New Day. I love tag team wrestling. Um, I thought Edge and Christian, the Hardys and Dudleys were gonna be here, but I agree with everything what you guys said in the first round of how this storyline you were able to see more of not just like how great they have with their in-ring chemistry, but they also what they were able to do in their promos. They told the story well. Um, and even I think it was this past Monday on Raw with them Jay and Kofi teamed up to see how cool that was, even though it wasn't really highlighted that well. It was still cool to see them team together. Um, and that brought everything back to you know they can coexist too. Although they feuded for a few times during 2015, 2016, and maybe before that too. Um, their story, their tag team chemistry. They were two tie flying tag teams, so it was like their Hell in a Cell match was one of the best Hell in a Cell matches we've seen in a while at that time. So I believe that was the first, no, not the first tag team, no, but uh, just see a different dynamic of tag team wrestling and how they were being used at the time. I think also changed tag team wrestling going forward from there. Like you said, Joel, the tag team elimination chamber match, we were able to see that come into play at some point. So I got to shout out Usos and the New Day, two of the top tag teams in our generation. Just put on great chemistry and great work during that time. So I'm gonna have to go with that one. Joel, Brian versus the Authority or New Day versus Usos? You're on mute. You're on mute.
My fault. I had stuff on in the background. For some reason, they turned the heat on, so I got shit making mad noise. But I got Brian versus the Authority. Love the Usos versus New Day. Uh, Great storyline, great promos. They had great matches, but Brian versus the Authority was just so special, and having it at a time that WWE was kind of like on. I wouldn't say the decline, but it was at one of those points that was just stagnant, and it was like
Yeah.
not a lot happening, and then them trying to give us a Randy versus Batista in the main event, I think is fucking wild, and then having to change it because it was one of those things that the fans were just like, no, we're not budging on this shit. And I think they, to be all honest, I think they did just because they knew if they put on that main event Mania, they were gonna get booed out the building. I think
Yeah.
that's exactly why they put Brian in. But the months of build up, starting at SummerSlam, probably starting before that,
Yeah.
when he probably even got the title shot. But it was really like out in the open at SummerSlam when he got cashed in on Triple H, cost him that. Randy sided with the Authority. Then that whole winter was just them trying to shit on him and him trying to overcome every obstacle that they put in front of him to finally him getting his big moment. I think that was what was the coolest. There was a point that was like, all right, this is the end of this story, and he
Yeah.
was able to stamp that. Nothing taking nothing against away from Usos and New Day, but I think Bryan and the Authority was just so much better than that storyline. Just because, like I said, like it was just one of those things that was like you sympathize with this guy. I was like, damn, they like just give him a fucking shot. You know what I mean? Like just
Yeah.
give him some
Yeah.
lenient way, man. But yeah, that's why I go with Bryan versus the Authority.
Ooh, Angel, you're in the hot seat now. We're
All
gonna
right.
we're
Hot
gonna
Cool.
choose
seat.
tiebreaker.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Um, Now I got to give props to Usos New Day. You know, if looking down the list and looking down any storyline or feuds, tag team wrestling is hard to
Yeah.
actually create that. You know, and the fact that they're on the list and they're up here is cool. You know, is they did something. They did something to captivate our minds and our energy towards that. You know, but Brian and the Authority, dude, like that it's so organic, and we have so much love for Daniel Bryan, and then just to see him get screwed out of it, and then it was like forced, like we have to give him this. You know, I'm sure they wanted Batista to be that. All right, he's coming back. That welcome home kind of thing, but they were like,
Yeah.
nah, we don't want that. We don't want no Batista. We don't want that. So it was so organic, and it was loved by everyone. I don't think anyone had anything bad to say about that storyline at all. Like
Yeah.
from
That is
top to
true.
bottom, the way it was done was perfectly. I just wish Brian didn't get hurt. I think it
Yeah.
would have ran a little longer. I'm sure they would have threw somebody like a Brock Lesnar to kill him off somehow. Um, but the fact that it happened and we were able to witness that, I got to give it to Brian and Authority.
That's fair.
Special time, man.
It
Yeah.
was. Yeah. Ray versus Eddie, Guerrero versus Trish versus Mickey. Um, whew. Angel, you want to start this one off too?
Oh, I'm gonna go on this one. The Ray and Eddie.
Yeah.
Trish and Mickey definitely had their run. It was fun seeing it, and the fact that it was a women's program was dope in itself. But Ray and Eddie, man, like we were just talking about, it's still talked about to this day. It's running through the programs now with Dom actually being an active wrestler, and he has
Yeah.
a longevity of years, so they could continue running with that if they wanted to.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely Ray and Eddie. They're gonna get my vote.
Okay. I'm gonna choose Ray versus Eddie too. I mean, I just feel like even to this day we still talk about what that storyline between with Dominic in the middle, the custody for the ladder match. even if you weren't a fan during that time, it still wants you to go back to, like I said, like with Dominic bringing it up now, like Eddie's my father. Um, I hope that kind of like brings people to be like, let me go back and watch that match and see what that match is all about. Because if he brings it up so often that Eddie's my father, what can the storyline possibly be? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I hope that is his plan to be like, hey, Eddie's my father. Why is he saying Eddie out of all people? But since the storyline and that match is still talked about to this day, I have to give it to Eddie versus Ray. Two of my favorites right now. Two of my favorites of all time. Technically, Ray's still wrestling, so still technically active. But two of my favorite wrestlers ever going up head to head. I love Trish versus Mickey. That whole stalker storyline. The character that Mickey put on, she did amazing in that role of being that crazy girl that like super crazy. To be able to do the things she did on on TV during that time, that wouldn't even pass to this day on television if that happened
Yeah.
now,
Oh yeah,
which is
definitely.
crazy. The thing, but like, and I agree with both of you when you said that this storyline, this matchup is like that put on like that kind of started the this more storylines with women's wrestling. But Ray versus Eddie, two of the greatest cruiserweights of all time. That matchup is just insane. So I have to go with Ray versus Eddie. Joel, who do you have?
Yeah, yeah, y'all said it all. I gotta go with Ray and Eddie. Also, something we haven't mentioned. Shout out Halloween Havoc, baby.
Ooh.
Yes, yes, that
Yeah, I
match
can
too.
watch that match anytime.
I love that
Like,
match so much.
Yeah, when I saw that match on YouTube for the first time, I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's
It's
insane.
definitely one of my favorites of
to
all
this
time.
day, no one could get that springboard DDT on point the way they had it.
Oh,
No
that
one.
iconic,
it
that
was
iconic
just so
attire by Ray.
perfect. Yeah,
So that's insane.
everything.
Envisioning that move is just
Yeah, everything
crazy.
just went perfect that night for them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's crazy.
it did. Final four, we
The
got
heavy
Tommy Dreamer versus
hitters.
Raven, Undertaker versus Kane, then Danielson versus Authority, Ray versus Eddie. First matchup in the final four, we got Tommy Dreamer versus Raven taking on Undertaker versus Kane. Joel, what do you think was the better feud between the
You're
two?
the fucking worst, Nick. I'm gonna go with.
Someone has to start, bro.
True. Fuck it. I'm going with Dreamer and Raven. I'm going with Dreamer and Raven.
Okay.
I've gave my explanations. It's still, I could still go back like and watch all those. That's what's even a thing. Like even the promos, I'll sit down and watch the build up for it. I don't even need to just see the matches. I love just seeing the whole thing just laid out and the whole build up for it. Probably one of my favorite storylines of all time, to be honest. So I gotta give it to Dreamer and Raven. Kind of
Okay.
feel like they're gonna be
Angel.
out this one, but yeah,
All right,
we'll see.
yeah, I'm gonna run with Dream and Raven on this
Oh
one.
shit,
Ah,
let's
you thought
go!
wrong. You thought
Let's
wrong.
You know
go!
why?
Okay.
Because
Uh,
it ECW is so gritty, right? But when you watch their stuff, they just made it work somehow.
Yeah,
The promo videos,
yeah.
everything was just working, and it just clicked. It made you feel for characters. Somehow Paul Heyman was able to throw stuff out there, and it worked for every single wrestler. Like it's crazy. I was having a conversation with. I had an ECW hat on, and I was at a store, and the dude's like, "Oh man, ECW, I remember those days. I wish it was still around." I said, and I had a conversation. I was like, I would love for it to be around, but I wouldn't want to see all these old guys wrestling right now. He was like, "Yeah, that's right, man." Then he brought up Dreamer Raven. He was like, that was one of his favorite, just stories. It was just captivating. If they could have brought that to like the mainstream type
oh,
thing,
that would have been great.
like you
Yeah.
would have been seeing people crying, because nowadays people are a little soft in the heart.
Yeah,
It's like
Yeah.
but that if you Nick, if you ever get back to like just when we're done with all of this, go back to the Dreamer
Yeah.
Raven. YouTube has some clips of the promos and whatnot, and just even Raven to this day talks about that feud. Like they always ask him, what's your top feud, and Raven always say, well, Dreamer and I had like a blast, doing this, and it's going on 15, 20 years already.
yeah.
And the
Yeah.
fact that they still talk about it, it just speaks volumes. So definitely
Yeah.
Dreamer Raven. Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna choose Taker and Kane off of this one. and I've chosen every single other feud that wasn't Dreamer versus Raven so far. But like, I wasn't around then, even though I wasn't
Yeah.
around for most of Taker and Kane either. It was just I was a part for a little bit towards the end of their feud.
And you know more of the
So
story than a Dreamer and Raven.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I know more about their history and why they were on and off with feuding with each other. So that to me makes more sense. Um, even though Dreamer and Raven already won this matchup, it's like Taker and Kane, two big heavyweights who move like cruiserweights. Well, not
Yeah,
exactly like
which is
cruiserweights, but
crazy.
they were
Yeah.
mobile. So it wasn't like Great Khali where he walks like slow as fuck to the ring.
It looks like it
He can
hurts
barely
when he
move a muscle.
walks.
Exactly. Same with Paul White. Like Paul White looks like his
Yeah.
knees hurt, and it's like these two were like jumping off the top rope, walking on the top rope. The what's that
Kane's
move called?
clothesline was sick. I love the way he formed his body for that clothesline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
and
that's crazy.
even yeah, he. I think there was a point where I saw him jump over the top rope. If I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, the Undertaker does that a lot. Undertaker did that a lot.
Yeah.
But two big guys fighting every single time, they like no pun intended, but they put on like, their matches were like insanely. Like, I don't know, it just
They're
that feud just made
entertaining.
more sense to me. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
And that
entertaining.
was so crazy because it's crazy how like that was like the first match that like the guys had the
Kind
same
of look.
moves. It was the same move set. They had the same move set. And it
Yeah,
was just
that
they
is
had
also
to
true.
try and like top each other. And I think that's
Hmm.
why the first match worked so well because it was like, oh, Taker's gonna get him in a tomb. Oh no, Kane reversed
Yeah,
it, hit him with a tombstone. It was like one of
exactly.
those things that was like, oh, they're trying to one up each other,
It
and
just
that's
felt like
what
the same guy but different looks. You know what I mean?
exactly. It was like, yeah, you
So
could tell they brothers.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true. And the day I found out they weren't brothers, it was like, oh no,
Huh,
it was downhill from there.
heartbreaking for me.
Yeah,
Heartbreaking.
exactly. um, Second matchup in the final four, we got Daniel Bryan versus the Authority versus Ray versus Eddie Guerrero. Um, who wants to start this one off? Because I don't know.
Yeah. I'll start it off. This
Uh,
could be the final.
This could be the final.
Alone right
yeah, this
here.
could be the yeah. This could be
This
the
right here.
final.
So I'm like, oh man, damn, this is the semis. Like
Yeah,
this right here could be a final. But man, it is both. If you're looking at it now, it's like Brian Authority, Ray, Eddie. Man, it,
yeah.
they're both like top notch. I'm gonna have to go. Oh
Oh,
man, this is
I'm
tough.
waiting. I'm waiting to hear that
This is
answer.
tough.
Yeah.
This is tough. But
Uh,
I'm gonna have to go Brian and Authority.
oof.
Ooh.
I just like that it was so organic. It wasn't anything that they had penciled in.
Yeah.
I remember penciled in, you could always erase, put it back in. This was just it grew on people, grew on everyone because they wanted Brian in there. They like it's hard to please a wrestling fan. You
Yeah,
know, there's always no, they're too
Mm.
small. There's always something. They don't like to be force fed.
Angel,
This
we say
wasn't
it all the
force fed.
time. The worst fans in the world are wrestling
or wrestling
fans.
Yes,
fans. Yeah,
yes. So I'm sure when people watch it, like they
Yeah,
would have
exactly.
Dreamer Raven
yeah,
would have been eliminated first round, you know.
yeah. Yeah.
But
We're gonna get comments in
like,
the post to be like, why is this the matchup in the
yeah,
finals?
why?
I
They
don't,
don't even know. They probably don't even know who Tommy Dreamer Raven is.
yeah,
Facts.
But man, this was so organic and it's loved. Like I love it, and the fact that it happened, man. Again, it's perfect. It was just perfect all around, and the fact that it's organic, I have to give the edge to Brian and the Authority over Ray and Eddie. Even though I love that feud so much,
Yeah.
I
yeah.
have to give it to Brian.
Joel, who do you have in this matchup?
I gotta give it to Brian and the Authority. I love Ray and Eddie, but there was something so special at that time that
Yeah,
it was just there was no denying Brian. There was
Yeah,
yeah,
no denying him, and every single fan was on the same page. You know what I
yeah.
mean? You barely saw slander about that storyline. It wasn't
I don't
like,
think I
oh,
met
Brian
anybody
doesn't
that wanted
deserve
Triple H
it.
to win.
Yeah,
and,
like there was a couple people, but there wasn't no one that you didn't find anybody that said Brian didn't deserve that spot.
and they try to joke
Exactly.
on him. Remember, like on commentary, like they always try to have like the heel commentary shit
Shit
on
on
Brian.
him.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
he
yeah,
looks like a goat. He looks like a mini something. He looks like this.
yeah,
Yup.
yeah,
Some people
yeah,
like really feed into that. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
why am I like him? but
Exactly.
people love this dude. It was so crazy.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's why I have to give them the edge because it was like like Angel said, it was so organic and everybody was behind this guy. You couldn't just not give us that match. You had to try and include him, and for them to actually change shit up and not be stubborn because they could have been stubborn and
Yeah,
said, "Fuck the fans, you're gonna buy Mania anyway." But they actually were like, "Nah, people are behind this guy, and we can make some money off of this." You know what
word.
I mean? Like think about all the merch that came out. Like it was just so like such a crazy time, and then the whole thing that they when he had all the fans come into the ring for Raw and Triple
Yeah.
H is going crazy on the stage. He's like, "You want a match? I'll give it to you." And he cutting that crazy promo, and it's just like it was like, yo, and the place is going crazy. The fans in the ring are going crazy. The place is going crazy. Brian finally has his match. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
was just a moment that was like you remember that storyline so vividly because it was one of those storylines that I could tell you when each thing happened where I was, like what I was feeling, because it was like it was that big, because it was like
It
yo,
was something
like
you felt. It was something you
yeah,
felt.
because it was like
Yeah.
yo, this is an underdog. No one, he's a smaller guy. He's a B+ player. They'll never give him this spot, and then for him to fight and claw months and months, and then finally get that main event spot. How else would you end a perfect story? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's why I gotta go with Brian and the Authority
I'm gonna go with Ray versus Eddie
to not get
because
swept.
again, well, yeah, but
I feel
because I
like
kind of like, you know, there's like I'm big on cruiserweights. I'm big on lucha wrestling.
that is
So
a big thing. Yeah,
to see like again going back and watching these matches together, they have great chemistry. Them and two in the ring, it's like they made magic,
yeah,
and their
that's a
storytelling
fact.
between them two, the fact that they had multiple times where they fought either as a tag team or each other, it was like I just loved watching their stuff, and I wish I was able to watch it during that time. Sucks I couldn't see it again after that, but um, again, it was just their chemistry together and being able to at least having their fusing again with the storyline with Dominic in the middle, and that's a different storyline that you know you've never seen. Fighting over custody over
Never.
someone's actual son, that's
Yeah,
insane. So Um, I had to get again. I don't want to see them get swept. That also plays part of it. But I love Ray and Eddie. I couldn't see them get swept in this one, so I had to choose. So now we have a final matchup. The finals between Tommy Dreamer versus Raymond Raven. I said Raven. Tommy Dreamer versus Raven. Daniel Bryan versus the Authority. Uh, I'm gonna start this one off,
ooh, let's do
and
it.
I'm gonna say Daniel Bryan versus the Authority
Okay.
because I kind of agree what you guys said in the previous rounds. One of the biggest storylines in wrestling at that time that really pushed Daniel Bryan, to be the top guy. Like, yeah, I said in the first round, like Daniel Bryan was a star before WWE. This time in Ring of Honor, you know, there was no doubt he was going to be big anyways. But like the way they treated him as an underdog, to finally getting his moment on a big stage, the main event, not just that WrestleMania, but he was also main evented the one that happened like 3 years ago. So um, he became a even bigger star than what we knew he was going to become. And again, you guys said everything. Like he had that moment with everyone that was in the crowd. Everyone was behind him, and I said it. Like I don't think I heard anybody during that time that wanted Triple H to win, other than the commentators. I think they were the heel commentators. I think they're the only ones that wanted Triple H to win. And you know what I mean? Like if you were a fan that wanted Triple H to win during that feud over Daniel Bryan, then you're crazy. Um, so I had to give it to Bryan versus the Authority here. Angel, who do you have winning this? Basically
Oh
this
man.
bracket.
All right, so here it is. Here it is. I'm gonna have to go with Brian and the Authority, and I'm gonna just deep dive a little bit with Brian, Daniel Bryan, Brian Danielson. The fact that this small guy made it
Yeah,
from the Indies all the way through to this storyline that captivated millions of people. Like no one would have ever thought a pro wrestler could turn into a character, make the character work in such a way where you get the fucking yes movement all over the
Yeah.
world. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And you know, I'm always run back to that being organic and just seeing his development from just being a gritty wrestler, restless wrestler. Like I'll, you know, and that's what he's doing now. But his time is already pretty much winding down, and that's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
But the fact that he grew from that into this character, and
Yeah.
it just was so organic and loved, man. I have to give it to Brian and Authority, man. There's no way I was going anywhere else. Dreamer
Yeah.
Raven, thank you.
Yeah.
You made it to the finals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Facts.
I thought you were choosing him. I'm like, no way he's choosing Dreamer and Raven.
Yeah,
He's gonna lose.
definitely then Brian and the Authority, man. Like it was so it was so well thought and well the way they made the twist, because I could guarantee anything that they didn't have that penciled in for Brian at all. They didn't have
Yeah.
nothing for him.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they won Joel, but who are you
Yeah,
gonna
but
choose
we're not letting
anyways?
Dreamer and Raven getting swept. Put that one up. Put that one up.
Okay.
I already knew that was the outcome. I was like, but I can't let these guys get swept.
Yeah.
But of course, Brian and Authority was better. But we can't let it go 3-0 on
Yeah.
Raven and
Yeah.
Dreamer. You
Yeah.
gotta give them at least a little bit of love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn, look
That
at
is
that
true.
bracket, man. A tough one, but
Admit
we got
that's-
It
through it.
was. We got through it. Daniel Bryan versus the Authority was the feud of this bracket between us three. Thank you, Angel, for coming through, for
Yes,
coming up
sir.
with this bracket and doing this episode with us. We appreciate it. Where can people follow you and find you on social media?
Yeah, actually I saw you guys had the at stuff in the bottom of your name, so I added it. Referee
Yeah.
Okay.
underscore Cruz. Yeah, so I do some refereeing for independent shows. I'm definitely a fan of professional wrestling. Joel and I know each other since he was a child, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, facts.
yeah, it's the love of wrestling, you know, all around. Again, those watching later on or whenever they do, this is all opinionated, people. Don't get your panties in a bunch.
Facts.
We're just having a good time with this. This was a great time. Thank you for having me on here, just discussing wrestling, just bringing back memories and
Yeah.
having a good time with this. You know, this was definitely fun and it was cool.
For sure, man. For sure. Again, for all those listening, go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on all of our platforms as well. This has been the Fanatic Brackets with myself and Joel, and we'll see you guys next time.
Catch ya.
Peace.